Yeah, the sun was almost rising when the Mets got back in town this morning after a rain-delayed night in Atlanta, but the Mets have returned for their final extended homestand of the season to a beautiful evening in Queens. And all the fans getting off the 7 train, all pointing in the same direction towards Citi Field. At Citi Field in New York, the New York Mets play the Washington Nationals. This Mets game on SNY is presented in HD by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. And a pleasant good evening, everybody, and welcome to Citi Field. Gary Cohen, Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez with you tonight as the Mets open a weekend series against the Washington Nationals. Two teams going nowhere. The Mets trying to get back on the beam, having lost 9 of their last 10, and going up against one of the most renowned sluggers in the National League year after year after year. Adam Dunn has hit 40 home runs a season. He was out on the market for most of the offseason before the Nationals plucked him to a 2-year contract at a reasonable cost, and they've gotten their money's worth.
Well, they certainly have. He's been one of the few bright spots on this ball club, the Nationals ball club. You know, started his career in Cincinnati, and he's got 37 home runs coming into this game, 99 ribeye steaks. So he's having another big year, a .558 slugging percentage, and he always has an on-base percentage of over 400. He's .410 this year with his on-base percentage. So he's the one guy in this lineup outside of Ryan Zimmerman where you really got to be careful. You make a mistake to that man, he'll hit a home run like he did off Santana.
And that is the only home run that's reached the bridge here at Citi Field so far. That went off Santana back in May. Going for the Mets tonight is Mike Pelfrey. Mike looked like he was going in the right direction 2 starts back against the Cubs, but then took a step back in his start in Philadelphia.
Boy, it's really been an up-and-down year for Mike so far this year. The second half has not been very good for him, and I think one of the things he's going to have to concentrate on, he's got probably 3 more starts till the end of the year. 13-10 sounds much better than 10-13. And going up against J.D. Martin tonight, who has really been probably the best pitcher for the Nationals the past month. He's won 3 of his last 4 road starts, and his last 7 starts, his ERA is just above 3. He's a guy that they love, not only because he throws strikes, because he's a gamer out there also.
Mets beat J.D. Martin in his Major League debut in D.C. back in July. The Mets and the Nationals opening a weekend series at Citi Field. All the action coming up tonight on SNY. with IOTV. By State Farm. Today's State Farm agent of the day is Pat Cawley in Glendale, New York. Log on to sny.tv/State Farm to check out the State Farm agent of the day. By Pella Windows, the Mets official window and door replacement company. Call 1-866-64-PELLA for special savings today. And by Victorinox Swiss Army, makers of the original Swiss Army knife. Visit the official online shop of the Mets at Mets.com. Browse the largest selection of authentic team gear, including official caps, t-shirts, jerseys, collectibles, and more. Get your team gear straight from the source. Shop the Mets.com shop. Here's your Mets upcoming schedule. Remember, all Mets games on SNY are available in HD, presented by IOTV. This is the first of 3 with the Nats. Next 2 days, afternoon games, both on Pix 11. Back on SNY Monday night for the first of 3 against the surging Braves. And then the Mets go to Florida and to Washington for their final road trip of the season. And if you're in the car, listen to every Mets game on Sports Radio 66 WFAN. David Wright and the Mets getting ready to face the Nationals. First of 3 over the weekend on a lovely night in New York. First pitch coming right up. From 30 for the year and 1 run scored away from 100 runs scored. Ian Desmond, the rookie shortstop, has only been in the big leagues for a week, and he's already made a splash for the Nats. Washington at 50 and 96 on the year. It would take quite a run by them at the end of the season to avoid 100 losses, but that is certainly a goal for them right now.
And here comes Mike Pelfrey. We have the first pitch ceremony. So a lot of pitchers, to tell you the truth, are a little superstitious. They don't like to go on that mound when you have one of the local yokels throwing out the first ball. But Pelfrey, 10-10 so far this season, 5.09 ERA. He's got 4 more strikeouts to get to the century mark in this season. And his home away numbers, Mike likes home cooking, likes pitching in this ballpark.
Well, you're right there. He's 6-3 on the year. with an ERA of 3.56, RJ, and away 4-7 with an ERA of 7.
Here's a problem with Mike's numbers this year. You said he was 4 away from 100 strikeouts. He's given up 100 runs.
Yes.
If you have more runs allowed than strikeouts, that's a rough year.
It's not a good thing. And also that number at the bottom, guys, 15 home runs. Mike has been known until this season as a guy that almost impossible to hit home runs off of, but giving him up a little more in this second half.
And as he's done that, he's also gotten fewer double play balls, which tells you that his ball's just not sinking the way it was.
No, I think that what he's gone to, and I think rightfully so, he's throwing a lot more four-seamers because they really are throwing a lot of left-handed lineups at Mike. And that sometimes takes away from your sinker.
Well, the Lexus Mets defense. Brian Steiner making his 4th start this month. Brian, of course, has been kind of relegated to the bench and has done a gentleman's job, a great teammate's job with the young Josh Tolley, helping him along behind the plate. He's in the lineup tonight. And of course, Beltran, who missed last night, only plays 2 straight starts in a row, is out in center field. And Pagan goes to left. So this really gives the Mets their best defensive outfield with Pagan, Beltran, and Francoeur.
Willie Harris will lead things off for the Nationals. Harris playing center field, hitting just .230 this year, but a good on-base percentage for a leadoff man, .373. Harris, who has always tended to beat the Mets with his glove, has had trouble against them with his bat. As you see there, just 1 for 17 against Mets pitching this year. Pelfrey ready to work, and we're underway at Citi Field. The first pitch fastball taken high. It'll be Harris, then Christian Guzman and Ryan Zimmerman for the Nats in the top of the first. And Harris lifts one to center field, and Beltran has it lined up. And Carlos puts it away for the first down of the night.
It's the first time in 3 days, Gary, we started the game on time.
That's a good point that you make. And I'll tell you what, there's a lot of people here at Citi Field. Certainly not every seat is filled.
Yeah.
But considering the fact that you've got 2 teams that have been mathematically eliminated and you've got 2 weeks to go in the season, the stands are at least half full, and I think that's encouraging.
Well, especially after we've been in the Atlanta for 3 nights now to watch those sparse crowds.
Terrible crowds in Atlanta for a team that was very much in the hunt.
Here's Christian Guzman, the shortstop, hitting at .289. 0 for his last 12. He takes a strike.
He's been cold at the plate, and he's always been a guy that has given the Mets trouble.
Guzman in the 3rd year of a 4-year contract, and there's been talk recently about perhaps moving him to second base next year.
Well, his arm is not as strong as it used to be. Guzman, of course, had some of his better years in Minnesota, but of late in Washington has rebounded after having injury-filled years the first couple.
Tough play. Murphy can't make it, and Guzman is safe. Not sure what Daniel had in mind. That would have been an awfully long flip to make with his glove, and that looks like what he was attempting to do.
Should use the 2 hands here, Gare. You had time to just field it properly. And you see, being the right-hander, he would be able to shovel the ball to him with his right hand. It'd be a more difficult play for a left-hander with the glove hand on the right hand.
It goes as an infield hit for Guzman, and the Nationals have a 1-out base runner. And Ryan Zimmerman steps in. Zimmerman having a fine year, although he has cooled off over the last few weeks. 29 home runs, 94 driven in. He has scored 99 runs. That's 4th in the National League. The Nats, despite being 46 games under 500, have been a pretty good offensive team for most of the year.
Well, unlike the Mets, they've got some pop with Willingham and Zimmerman and Dunn.
They have the worst record in the league, but they're 9th in the league in runs scored, 9th in home runs, and 2nd in the league in on-base percentage, led by Dunn and all those walks. And the slider from Pelfrey misses 1-1.
I'll tell you, I was watching the batting practice today that the Nationals put on quite an event out here today. Dunn, Willingham, Zimmerman. Zimmerman hit one off the facing of the beginning of the 3rd deck.
Really?
Yes.
That's a long way up. Zimmerman a mile from the plate. Hits one out to right field, chasing Francoeur toward the corner, and it's going to go over his head and out of here.
Wow.
A 2-run homer for Ryan Zimmerman as that ball carried awfully well to right field. The opposite field shot is Zimmerman's 30th of the year, and the Nationals go in front 2-0. I think that shocked everybody, including Jeff Francoeur, as that ball sailed into the front row in right field.
Well, he is set up away, Zimmerman that is, and Pelfrey throws a fastball away. Let's see, a little bit too much plate, but Zimmerman was locked in on a ball outer half, and that just barely cleared. There is a strong wind from the west tonight, and that means it's blowing out to right. As Adam Dunn, now the big power guy, steps in.
Now, so Zimmerman reaches 30 home runs and reaches 100 runs scored with that 2-run homer. Now has 96 runs batted in. He did not expect that ball to go out. You can tell by the expression on his face. Pelfrey works inside to Dunn, 1-1. There's your IOTV pitch differential.
Oh boy, that's a big miss right there.
It's still down, but he was going away, it looked like, with the 4-seamer, not the 2-seamer, so it stayed pretty true. But still, outstanding hitting by Zimmerman. Sometimes you have to tip the cap.
Well, Ronnie, we're talking about the home run ball for Pelfrey, and that's 16 home runs now, which is not a lot for the full season, but the second half of the year has been very different.
It's only the 5th home run that he's given up to right-hand hitters. So stunning.
So Zimmerman has put the Nationals in front. Now 1-2 to Dunn. Adam Dunn, 37 home runs, 99 driven in. Top 10 in the league in on-base percentage and slugging percentage. What's different for Dunn this year is that he's hitting .280. He was a lifetime .247 hitter when the year began. And as he generally does, he works the count full. He's walked 106 times. He has struck out 164 times. And Pelfrey's 3-2, popped foul. Mark Reynolds has reached the 200 strikeout plateau for the 2nd straight year. The only man in Major League history who's ever struck out 200 times in a season.
I'd hate to see a Stratomatic card.
You know what, though?
A lot of home runs in it.
I'd take him.
Wow, 200 strikeouts.
Well, 204 last year for Reynolds. That's the Major League record, and he's probably going to eclipse that easily.
Let's not forget, too, that Reynolds, I think, had the greatest series of any visiting player this year at City.
Well, we showed the home run that Dunn hit here, which is the only one to reach the bridge, but Reynolds hit the longest home run here at Citi Field, the one he hit in the 2nd deck out in left center.
He popped them all over the place, each gap.
Got in on his fist, but Dunn fouls it off.
You know, to get back to Zimmerman just for a second, that's almost a natural progression that they thought would happen to Zimmerman. His 2 full seasons in 06 and 07. Last year he was hurt a good part of the year. He had 47 and 43 doubles, but only 20 and 24 home runs. But now 31 doubles, and his home run total has gone up. So that's the natural progression for those young stars. They're going to start hitting more home runs as they get older.
Dunn lifts it out to left center, which is where Pagan is playing. And that's the 2nd out of the inning. So Pelfrey wins that battle, a 10-pitch marathon, as he gets done on the fly ball. So 2 away now, Josh Willingham, and it's almost stunning when you look back at the beginning of the year for Washington and think that Willingham was a part-time player.
Yep.
He was the odd man out in that outfield when they were playing Dunn in left and Lastings, Millage in center, and Austin Kearns in right. Kearns is out for the year. Millage has been traded to Pittsburgh, and Willingham, since getting to play regularly, has had himself a fine season, which figured all along off what he did in Florida the last few years.
Yeah, you know, I really looked at when I saw Willingham. They had all those outfielders. He knew he wanted to play. He did not say a word. He waited his turn, and when he got a shot, he made the most of it. You know, a lot of guys might have started complaining on that bench. He did not.
He's not that kind of guy. You know, he's
a gamer.
He's just solid on down.
Jim Riggleman took over in July for Manny Acta, and Riggleman has done better. They are 24 and 35 since Riggleman took over, which is obviously no great shakes, but certainly better than they had been up until that point.
Jimmy ironically named as the bench coach by Manny Acta in October of last season.
They were 26 and 61 under Acta before he got the pink slip.
And last year, Riggleman became the interim manager of Seattle when John McLaren was let go. So 2 years in a row.
And Willingham bounces the breaking ball foul.
I was thinking, if you're a manager, kind of the black cat, Jim Riggleman, right?
Well, he made some moves immediately. One was to put Willingham in the lineup. The other one was to change gears at second base, where Anderson Hernandez had been playing every day, and Anderson wound up being let go and dealt to the Mets. Struck him out. Pelfrey with the sinker gets Willingham for his first strikeout. But Ryan Zimmerman gives the Nationals the early lead with his 30th home run of the year. A 2-run shot off Pelfrey that just snuck out. 2-0 Washington. Here's your Mets starting lineup tonight, brought to you by Geico. Angel Pagan playing left field tonight. Carlos Beltran, who sat out last night, back in center field. Brian Schneider getting the rare start. Daniel Murphy coming off a big night last night. And Pagan takes outside from J.D. Martin.
J.D. Martin, 26 years old, started with the Cleveland Indians organization, but then had Tommy John surgery in 2006. Talked about him being their best pitcher. Does tend to give up the home run ball, though. 4 of his 11 starts, he's given up 2 home runs in those starts.
Pagan hitting at .304, takes it wide. Well, Martin was a big-time prospect. The Indians drafted him in the first round, a supplemental first-round pick out of high school in 2001. The Indians got the pick to get J.D. Martin when they lost Manny Ramirez as a free agent to the Red Sox.
Wow.
And that was the pick with which Cleveland took J.D. Martin. But as you say, Martin had all sorts of injury problems and never really developed, and he's lost a lot of what he had in terms of his velocity when he was first signed, and he's had to become a finesse pitcher.
He'll sink it, he'll cut it, big overhand curveball and change.
Pagan pokes one out to left. Willingham toward the line, and he makes the reaching grab in foul ground for the first out. Nice play by Willingham, one away.
Well, we got that tight wall right there down the line, right in your face, and there's the Ford Nationals defense right in your face. There's your 124 errors, most in the MLB, staring you right in the eye. That's why they're probably in last place, one of the main reasons.
Well, that, and they haven't gotten any real consistent starting pitching all season long.
Here's Luis Castillo, and Castillo bunting one foul. Well, how about these pitching numbers for the Nationals this year? You know that the Mets have given up the most walks in the National League. The Nationals have given up the second most walks. They've given up the most hits, and they have the fewest strikeouts. That's a bad combination.
Yes, it is.
And that's led to the worst ERA in the league at 5.12.
Oh, boy. So think about it, folks. Coupled with the major league lead in errors, how many unearned runs are there? There's over 5 earned runs. So how many runs do you think they're giving up a game? Probably 6, 7.
Well, they've given up 72 unearned runs this year.
Wow,
that's a lot.
It's hard to win when your offense has got to score 8 to win.
Yeah.
But as has been the case for years, it seems, with the Nationals, they've had all sorts of injuries to starting pitchers. They lost Scott Olson for the season. They lost Craig Stammen for the season. They lost their fine prospect Jordan Zimmerman for the season. He had Tommy John surgery as Castillo strikes out. And in fact, Jordan Zimmerman may miss a big chunk of next year as well.
I think they are thinking that the earliest he can come back is in May. Nice pitch here by J.D. Martin. Just a running fastball off the plate, missed there by Luis Castillo.
Well, there are the Nationals pitching numbers.
Yeah, that's 4 walks. We add on the 4 walks too, RJ. Geez.
Well, the whip, right? The walk that hits the innings pitched is it's not very good.
It's off the charts. So that's what they've been up against, despite a very talented offensive team. That's why they're 46 games under 500. David Wright takes a strike.
And it just goes to show it doesn't matter how much you hit. You have to have good starting pitching over a 162 game schedule if you're going to have any consistency.
Slow ground ball, and Wright's buddy Zimmerman makes the play. 1-2-3 inning for J.D. Martin to set the Mets down in the first. It's 2-0 Washington.
For Billy Martin.
We go to the second inning at Citi Field. The Nationals with a 2-0 lead, courtesy of a Ryan Zimmerman 2-run homer.
Ryan Zimmerman reminds me of, to tell you the truth, reminds me a little, you know, when Hanley Ramirez would come into Flushing, whether it was Shea last year or Citi Field, he always tries to put on a show because Reyes gets a lot of the popularity. Zimmerman, I think, likes that competition with Wright at third base also.
Elijah Dukes leads off. He's been hot with the bat and takes a strike. And Zimmerman's stated goal before this year was to supplant David as the Gold Glove third baseman in the National League. He's probably going to pull that off. Back to Pelfrey, who kicks it over to Wright. David can't make the barehanded play, and Dukes is aboard with an infield hit. Well, last inning it was the missed glove flip by Pelfrey, by Murphy, and here it's the pinball shot from Pelfrey to Wright.
We saw a few of those in the Atlanta series too, and that's a tough play for David with that ball spinning. Took a quirky bounce there.
Took his eye off it too.
Like the rolling puck.
Yeah, it had a lot of spin on it. I think that's something that Pelfrey's going to have to work on also as he goes along. He's a sinker ball pitcher. He's going to have to learn how to field his position. That was tough because he's 6'7" to get all the way down. But
well, here's the rookie second baseman Ian Desmond. Actually, has been a shortstop for most of his minor league career. He was a gem in the Expos farm system. In fact, as long back as the 2005 spring training, Frank Robinson was talking about bringing Desmond to the big leagues for his glove. That's how highly regarded he was, but he never quite hit in the minor leagues until this season. And he has come up to the big leagues with a splash.
Well, September call up, he's 10 for 20. And of those 10 hits, 5 are extra base hits, 4 doubles, and a home run.
Has that wide open stance.
A la Derek Lee, right?
Mm-hmm. Off the glove of Pelfrey, smothered by Castillo, and they get the out at second. Well, that time Pelfrey with the deflection leading to an out. If Pelfrey doesn't get a piece of that, that ball's in center field.
I don't know how this happened, but big Elijah Dukes fits through Wilson Valdez. Watch the great stop here, Keith, and watch Dukes and Valdez.
How do you do that?
Right in between them.
Jeez.
By the way, young men, that's why you always wear a cup.
There you go, right.
That's incredible.
Oof.
You nudged him a little bit.
1 out and 1 on. Listen to that, Adrian Beltre. Here's Josh Bard, and he takes a strike. Bard hitting at .232 has tailed off the second half of the year. The Nationals have catching trouble. Jesus Flores, the former Met farmhand, who is such a bright-looking prospect, has missed most of the year because of first a fractured clavicle, and then he came back as a pinch hitter in September, and they found out he's a torn labrum, so he's out for the year. Will Nieves, the backup, hurt his hamstring running the bases yesterday, so they've just got Bard, and so they had to make a deal with Seattle yesterday and purchase 37-year-old Jamie Burke, who just arrived here today to be the backup to Bard. Fouled off his foot, and it's 0-2 to Bard.
What a break, right? Josh Bard has had an interesting career. He started in San Diego. He was traded to Boston, but he couldn't catch Wakefield, so they had to send him back to San Diego, and now here with Washington.
That turned out to be a very lucrative deal for the Padres because they got Clay Meredith in that deal, and then Bard hit about .330 for them that year. But he's been a little overexposed this year with all the extra playing time, and he gets out of the way of that inside fastball.
I don't think I've ever seen a hitter absorb the entire batter's box as Bard does. We'll get another look when he gets in the box overhead.
Reminds me a little of the old National, right? Nick Johnson, that's what the Marlins. He's a similar stance.
Look at that. I mean, that's just about got it covered. All these hitters today widespread with their feet.
Double play ball to Castillo. Valdez gets it over to Murphy. 4-6-3 double play to end the inning. Still 2-0 Nats. Donut, 6 bagels for $3 on our way. They even threw in some cream cheese.
You look like Carol Merrill, and let's make a deal.
Like Vanna White.
Under box number 3.
Very nice. Reduced, plain, fat.
Oh.
Very nice.
There's no donuts.
There's no glaze on these.
They're bagels.
Ray's chocolate's my favorite, by the way.
Chocolate.
Chocolate Ray's
Russ?
donut.
Oh, donut.
Take these away from me, please. Russell?
It is batting helmet night, by the way.
Oh, that's right.
They're not David Wright's discarded batting helmet.
Cheap girls.
Gosh.
What would our ex-coach say about that? Our late departed Bill Robinson? Wear that hat right. Turn it around, right?
That's right.
Carlos Beltran leads off the home second and takes a strike from J.D. Martin. Beltran hitting at .332. 7 games since coming off the disabled list. He's hitting .292 off the DL. It'll be Beltran, then Daniel Murphy and Jeff Francoeur for the Mets in the home second. Toward the middle of the diamond, and Desmond can't get it as it slips under him. A base hit for Beltran. Looks like Desmond dove a little too far.
Keith, it's hard to understand why Desmond is playing defensively to pull so much against Beltran, who uses all the field.
Well, that was a Baltimore chop right there. You were right, Garrett. He overran it on the inside of his glove. I think if he makes that play, they'll have a hard time throwing out Carlos.
Desmond is a shortstop known for a rather acrobatic style of play. Getting used to playing some second base right now as Murphy takes off the plate for ball 1.
Well, Murph had a big night last night. 3 for 4 with the home, 10th home run. And I liked the home run at bat because he got a little chin music and got sawed off.
And he drives this one down the right field line, just foul.
Remember, Murph in that at bat got sawed off completely up and in, and he stayed in, and 2 pitches later hit a home run. So Murph's not the type of hitter that you can knock down. Murph's going to get back up there and bear down.
Yeah, he's a born hitter. Loves to hit.
Had 3 hits last night, a double to left, a single to center, and a home run to right center. So Murphy now in double digits in home runs for the year, joining Wright and Sheffield. Still no Met with more than 10 home runs this year. Mets have never had a home run leader with fewer than 15.
Did you know what year that was? We'll get Big Dave on it.
See the grip of that changeup. Oh, sorry, fastball there by Martin. He does a nice job of disguising. He goes in there with the changeup grip. That's what fooled me. And then it'll change it in there so he doesn't open up that glove and reveal the changeup to the hitter.
Little slider.
Yeah, see how he changes it then?
More like a cutter than a slider.
Yeah, it really is a small little breaker.
More like a good pitch to hit.
Yeah. Well, you forget about Murph now. You know, there's so much written about him as defensively, but you know, he only has 11 less RBIs than David Wright. Same amount of home runs. Got 1 more double. So he's had some serious production. Nice move there by Martin.
Forcing a quick move by Beltran, is a little slow getting up.
He caught him.
Caught him off that in-between step.
And Murphy down swinging. Martin with the sinker gets him for his second strikeout. 1 out in the second.
This ball fooled Murph. Got like a little bit of movement. The same pitch that struck out Castillo.
You know what's interesting, Keith? After Murphy started to look in, the ball that used to be his bread and butter down in the way that he would drive the other way has become a bane for him, a little bit of a problem.
So now Jeff Francoeur hitting .452 over the last 7 games. And he was robbed of a hit last night by the official scorer in Atlanta. Well, retribution, perhaps. You leave town, you come back with a different unit. We're not giving you a hit. 2-0 to Francoeur.
Right. Well, that's what I like to watch. 2-0 to a free swinger. What is Mr. Martin going to use on this pitch?
And a rare 3-0 count for Francoeur. Brian Schneider waiting on deck. There's a strike to Frank Core, 3-1. Jeff, the tying run at the plate in the 2-0 game with Beltran at first and 1 out. Fouled away. We talked about J.D. Martin and how he was such a huge prospect with the Indians. Here's the kind of pitcher he was when they first signed him. They sent him to the Appalachian League. His 4th professional start, he pitched 5 innings, no runs, no hits, no walks, 14 strikeouts. Oh. Beltran runs and Frank Core pops one up in foul ground. Dunn moving over, having trouble with it, and can't make the play.
Are you kidding?
That was trouble from the start for Adam Dunn. And that'll be an error on Dunn, prolonging the time at bat.
Well, he just kind of drifting. You don't drift. You get to the ball, and well, he's not known for his glove, but that ball's got to be caught.
But you can also see why the Nats have had so many problems this year. You give teams 4 and 5 outs in an inning, you're going to be in trouble.
125 errors now for the Nationals. Beltran runs. Frank Core hits it in the air to left center field, and it's playable. Harris moving over to make the grab, and Beltran back to first, 2 away. So Frank Core unable to take advantage of that second chance. Let's do Ronnie's inside pitch on J.D. Martin, part of the business of baseball, brought to you by Xerox, ready for real business.
What they love about him is after coming back from Tommy John surgery, like Gary talked about, he is a great competitor on that mound. 2 kind of fastballs, the cutter and the sinking fastball, and a road warrior so far. This is his 6th road start. He's won 3 of his last 4. His last 7 starts, he's been 4-2 with a low ERA. So he's been the best pitcher the last month.
Mets got Martin in his first big league start. That was back in July in Washington. The Mets got 5 runs and 8 hits in 4 innings against him.
He's still stuck in the 14 strikeouts in 5 innings. By the way.
Pretty good, huh?
Like a men against boys in that Appalachian League.
The quote from the Nats scouting director after that start, actually it was the Expos at the time, yeah. John Mirabelli, he said, "We ought to find the one guy who put the ball in play and trade for him."
That's a good line. Good line.
Why take him out?
Well, that was the Indians scouting director.
Yeah.
The Indians farm system. In any event, I don't know if they ever made that deal. The answer to your question, Keith, pitch count.
Of course. I was being snide. He's paying an awful lot of attention to Carlos, as he should. Just wonder if Carlos is really maybe a little tentative to turn it on, try to steal a base coming off that injury.
And Schneider takes a strike 1 and 2. Brian had a couple of hits in his last start Sunday night in Philadelphia. He was about the only Met who could solve Pedro Martinez that night. And with that, Brian pushed his batting average up over 200 for the year. Nobody wants to finish the year under 200. He takes a pitch that almost hit him, and he pulls it foul.
You know, Keith, you're talking about Beltran at first base. I'll tell you, as a pitcher, if I knew before the game that a base runner was a little banged up, whether it was his knees or his ankles, I'm firing that ball over there a few times. Make him dive. Get him frustrated. No one wants to dive on injuries over and over again.
1-2 to Schneider. Lifted to left field, and Willingham drifting back. Puts it away to end the inning. Mets get a leadoff hit, but can't convert it. 2 in the books, 2-0 Nats. Run the bases at Citi Field following the Mets afternoon game this Sunday against the Nationals with the Mr. Met Dash for all kids 12 and under, presented by Nestle Drumstick. For tickets, visit Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX. Here's your AT&T pitcher's high speed. Mike Pelfrey's topped out at 95 tonight. J.D. Martin at 89. Martin and the Nats with a 2-0 lead as Martin leads off in the third inning. J.D. Martin 3 for 19 for the Nats this year, hitting a .158. It'll be Martin, then Willie Harris and Christian Guzman for the Nationals in the third. Bounced out to Wilson Valdez in the overhand toss to get Martin one away. Check out Ronnie's inside pitch on Mike Pelfrey, brought to you by Xerox. The business of baseball. Xerox, ready for real business.
Well, the hat trick is Pelfrey probably has 3 more starts, could really change his year with 3 more wins. Ground ball ratio really has come back to normal, not getting as many ground balls as he was before. And like we said, the home run in the first inning to Zimmerman and keeping the ball in the park is really going to be the key today. A step backwards there in the first.
That home run that Zimmerman hit was the first that Pelfrey's given up at Citi Field since June the 10th. 54 innings without allowing a home run in this ballpark. The last one hit against Pelfrey was by Chase Utley back on June the 10th. He hit a few in that series. Willie Harris flying to center his first time up. And he pops one up into shallow center for Beltran. And Harris retired 2 away.
A couple big games in the National League tonight. And Philly right now is in Atlanta. That's the one to keep an eye on. 0-0 in the bottom of the first. And you've also got Colorado at Arizona and big series in Los Angeles. Giants, Dodgers.
The Rockies will have Jason Marquis pitching in Arizona tonight against the former Met farmhand Kevin Mulvey, who was part of the Santana trade and wound up in Arizona this year.
Had a tough first start for Arizona.
Is Christian Guzman, who lifts one down the left field line. A long run from Gunn, who's playing the gap, but he gets over there and almost overruns it, but makes the grab to end the inning. Forgot it was the third out. Throws the ball in, and now he'll follow it in. 1-2-3 inning for Pelfrey. 2-0 Nats. League history to get a hit for 2 different teams in 2 different cities on the same day. I got this one.
I got one. I got it too.
Keith?
I don't know.
Well,
in 2 different cities.
How about this? I'll give you a hint, Keith. He played for a team that you played on.
Well,
I'll give you another hint. One of the hits was for the old franchise before they came over to Washington. Right?
Oh, it doesn't matter. I don't care. I really don't.
Zimmerman really has.
I've had enough of these darn quizzes. You know what? I've had it.
Wilson Valdez leads off and takes a strike from J.D. Martin.
You went from the beginning of the year, these quizzes, you couldn't wait to answer them, to now you don't want to even see them.
I'm spent. By the way, maybe we should inform the Met fans what time the club got back home last night, including us.
Well, it doesn't matter what time we got home.
I got in bed at 4 o'clock. I stayed in the city.
The bus arrived back here at Citi Field at about 3:45. So by the time everybody got home, it was 5 o'clock. Line into left field, a base hit for Valdez. Chased toward the gap by Willingham. He can't cut it off, and that'll get Valdez at least to second. He's going to turn and stop right there. So Wilson Valdez, who is 4 for 6 in the series in Atlanta, has his second double of the year.
And he's swinging a good bat. He jumps on that high fastball. He stays level. Ralph. I know we got Ralph tomorrow.
Yes, Ralph will be here tomorrow.
So Ralph must be in the building.
You can throw a level at him then.
Ralph, level, baby. And Wilson still runs well. He scampers. Whoop. Surfer there.
So now Mike Pelfrey will come up in a bunting situation, but he needs a face-to-face chat with Razor Shines before he can go about that.
Well, here's the IOTV pitch differential for Mr. Valdez and that at bat. Wanted that ball down and away and just middle, up in the strike zone. And I've been watching Valdez so far this season. He doesn't look very good on anything down or away, but anything middle and high over the cross of the strike zone, very good.
Pelfrey with just 3 sacrifice bunts this year, and there you see why. 0-1. Mike has 5 hits to his credit and has driven in 4 runs. Gets this one down. Martin will go to first, and so Pelfrey successfully sacrifices Valdez over to third. 1-4 on the sacrifice.
That's his 4th.
This ball kind of bunted Mike. He didn't really bunt the ball as it runs in on him. Watch. See the grip there on the bat? He's got that middle finger there. He wants to get that behind the bat if he could.
Very nice.
Nice form. Nice bending of the knees. Bat in front of the plate.
Picture perfect.
That's beautiful.
Think a video of that. Clinic.
So Valdez at third with 1 away, and Angel Pagan will try and get him in. Pagan hit a foul fly ball that Josh Willingham caught in the first inning. By the way, I misspoke earlier. I said no Met had ever led the team in home runs with fewer than 15. It was actually 12. 1977. Steve Henderson, John Milner, and John Stearns each had 12 to lead the team.
Wow, in the same year. Yeah. That's interesting.
Of course, they traded Kingman that year.
Right.
That was the purge when Seaver, Kingman.
That's right. And Stearns hit his number then, right?
12, yeah. Later to be your number. Stearns was also 16 at one point. 2-1 to Pagan.
Those were the down years.
Mazzo was 16 for a while too, wasn't he?
Yes.
And there's only one real famous 16 for the Mets forever and ever, Mr. Gooden.
Now it's been inherited by Mr. Pagan. Trying to do the number proud with a runner at third. Takes it low, and it's 3-1. That's a famous number.
It's a Hall of Fame number.
Hit hard, base hit. Valdez in to score. Angel Pagan does Doc proud. RBI single. 2-1 Washington. 29th one batted in for Pagan.
Well, we'll take a peek here. It's a ball sinker away. He's down the count. Nicely done by Angel. Not trying to do too much with it. Martin is a pitcher that cannot pitch very often behind the count. He's got to stay ahead.
Here's Castillo, who struck out his first time up. Pregame carrying the tying run, has 13 steals this year. He's been caught 6 times. .26-year-old J.D. Martin, who came to the big leagues this year 2,952 days after signing his first pro contract.
Wow.
That is perseverance.
Well, you know, the injury bug for these pitchers is such a hard thing to work through, because you go a guy like J.D. Martin, who, well, you know, was a phenom and was ready to burst onto the scene much earlier, but the injury pushes him back, and not only pushes you back as far as mentally and physically, but pushes you back on the depth chart, where people start to forget about you because you can't throw 97 anymore. It's 87.
Well, one thing about pitchers' injuries today is that the injuries that pitchers have today, they've had, you know, elbow and shoulder problems throughout baseball. That ended your career, particularly a shoulder. Today they come back.
Sometimes come back throwing harder.
Yes, better. You're right.
But it can also be said that injuries that are now treated surgically, sometimes pitchers pitch through those in the old days because it's easier to detect those injuries now.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Right.
Well, this is how it works, Gary, is that pitchers have always had these injuries. It's just that you never detected them before. You know what I mean? If you looked at my elbow right now, I'm sure that it would not anyone would care.
Castillo drives a base hit to center, and Pregame checks in at second base. 3 hits in the inning for New York.
But you could find bone chips or whatever you'd like to find. But you hear the ball's getting up in the strike zone,
Right down the pipe. Nice shot right there. That ball leaving the bat. The thing is, too, you didn't have the scope surgery back then when they opened you up and you passed. You had a big zipper.
Right. And you were out for 6 months.
Yep.
Now, new pitching coach for the Washington Nationals to go for Randy St. Clair, Steve McCatty. If you're not familiar with Steve McCatty, he pitched all of his career, in fact, 9 seasons with the Oakland Athletics. His best year probably was 1981. That was kind of a famous year because Billy Martin was the manager. You were pitching on that team. You were pitching 9 innings. Went 14-7 that year with 4 shutouts. He had 185 2/3 innings, 140 hits.
185 innings. That's tough because that was a strike season. Most teams played 110 games that year.
Yeah, he would have had 10 more starts, which would have got him to this 270, 280 inning mark.
Now, all those starting pitchers who pitched for Billy Martin ended up having arm trouble, and that started the trend away from pitchers completing games as regularly as Billy had them do. Breaking ball knocked down by Bard 1-0.
Rick Langford and Mike Norris.
Matt Keogh.
Let me tell you, Mike Norris was a heck of a pitcher.
Well, he had that good screwball. Nice block there by Bard.
Martin's getting ready for the big. He's primed to get hammered here, not getting his breaking ball over and not fooling anybody with his fastball.
And Wright takes off the plate. It's 2-0.
Well, got a pitcher on the ropes here.
Martin trying to nurse a 2-1 lead in the third. Wright grounded out to third base his first trip, and David fouls off the fastball.
For some reason, David, that pitch was right down Broadway. And he just, like I said, I haven't been able to put my finger on what he's doing differently, but he's not getting the barrel of the bat through. He's just tardy. He's got a longer swing than he used to have.
Gets this one in the air to deep left center field. Willingham going back near the wall, and Willingham leaps to make the grab. And the runners get back. Josh Willingham not noted for his defense. He made a nice play in foul ground earlier in the game, and here a terrific play up against the fence in left center.
Well, he had Harris wasn't going to get there in time for him. And that's around 386 right there. That's a big hang with him. The old Busch Stadium dimensions. And David, Shea, it's out. Not here. Fly balls are big ABs.
Well, I think we saw both factors, or at least two of the factors, in David's power drop off this year. And Jerry Manuel was talking about it before the game today, how they're putting together a whole compendium of video and statistical data to try and figure out what mechanically has been wrong with David that his home runs are down. But he just saw another reason why.
Well, we talked about it ad nauseum about Mozone out there in right field, where it kicks back there. It's 378 in the right center field part of the Mozone, and then it breaks back. You can see coming into your screen right now the Mozone right there. But the gaps, 384 is a big gap.
Well, Jerry was asked frankly. Here you go, Keith. Go ahead.
Right, well, 378 is just right there, but it kicks back another 10 feet at least. So back where where Modell sign is, you know, that's around 385, 386, 388. That's if you're going the opposite field, David's lost a lot of balls there that have been caught out in that area.
One and one to Beltran, who singled his first time, and he takes a strike.
You know, Jerry was asked frankly if he thought that David would get back the power numbers he's had before, and he had a great answer. He said, yes, why not? He said he's always trended towards 25 to 30 home runs, driving in the runs. He said, why should I believe the trend's going to go to this year and not trend back to where it was, where he had year after year after year of great production?
Much analysis.
Well, it's a huge question, and it's a huge question for this franchise as they go forward, because it affects how they make decisions at other positions. First base, left field, which are power positions. You're more accepting of less power if David Wright's a 30 home run guy. Beltran hits him toward the middle and a base hit. Desmond again playing in the pull, and Beltran takes advantage of it again, and that ties up the game. The exact same spot where he got his first base hit. Desmond made no adjustment, and Beltran drives in the tying run as Pagan comes in to score, and it's 2-2.
Well, Desmond not showing a whole lot of range at second base. At least going to his right. That's a little tougher chance, but Pagan with his speed is going to score easily.
Oh, whoever's in charge of those hitting charts on that Washington bench, they should throw him away, because that's twice now Beltran has hit a ground ball that usually is an out, but really playing him to pull.
So the Mets have put together 4 hits in the inning to score 2 runs and get the game even. Now first and third for Murphy, and he swings and misses, 0-1. Now the Mets as a team have fallen off the cliff as far as home runs are concerned, and that's, you know, it's the injury to Beltran, it's the injury to Delgado, it's the lack of production by Wright, all contributing to that. But I think that, you know, the larger issue going forward is, you know, you've got to guess as far as David's concerned as to whether he's a 10 home run guy or he's a 30 home run guy or something in between, because right now you don't know.
Well, I don't think they're going to guess, Gary. I think they're going to believe this, that Beltran's a 30 home run guy next year, Wright's a 30 home run guy at third base, Reyes is going to hit 15 at shortstop, and you have to decide what you want to do at first base and left field.
Murphy is certainly the option, one of those options at first base, pops this one up, and Harris puts it away to end the inning. The Mets get even. Pagan and Beltran with RBIs, and it's 2-2 after 3. and each other. And now every Thursday, Jets defensive tackle Chris Jenkins joins the debate and discusses all things gangrene on Loudmouths weeknights at 6 only on SNY.
Okay.
2-2 game as we start the fourth.
We got a new logo for Loudmouths. Thank goodness.
Ryan Zimmerman takes a strike. Zimmerman hit an opposite field 2-run homer in the first inning, his 30th of the year. Surprised everybody, including himself, by making that ball reach the front row in the right field stands.
Pelfrey's done a nice job. 23 pitches in the first inning, but in 9 in the second and 5 in the third. Mitch Zimmerman's home run to right.
That's the only one he wants back.
Yep.
First home run Pelfrey's allowed in this ballpark in more than 3 months, and only barely.
Nice year for Zimmerman. He's out of that kind of Tulowitzki class. Blue collars, hard, play hard kind of guys. Get dirty. Love those kind of players. Love those kind of teammates.
And he was rushed to the big leagues. Now he's drafted in 2005. That same year he was brought right to the big leagues.
In fact, that year they even used him a little bit at shortstop.
They did. He's not a shortstop. He doesn't have as much range. But you know what's great about that? For all those guys out there like a Strasburg or waiting for the big contract, this guy signed for a little less than that because he wanted to rush his development, and he got in the big leagues the first year.
Came out of the University of Virginia. Now he's got his second hit of the night. So Zimmerman aboard to lead off in the fourth. The fourth hit off Pelfrey.
So I think it's important as you watch this sinker by Mike. Doesn't really have that good sink on. It stays right in the middle there, Keith.
He's having trouble that pitch away. Tonight, that fastball away is kind of coming back over the middle. Well, actually, excuse me there. Snyder wanted it in. That just didn't have any movement.
Pelfrey's thrown a first pitch strike to each of the last 11 batters. Now, Dunn, a notoriously patient hitter. Would he think about going after the first?
Oh, yes, he would if he's been watching.
But Pelfrey misses away for ball one.
Well, Zimmerman, watch the front foot. He's got the big leg kick a la Darryl Strawberry. But he's more crouched. Darryl is more of a straight up hitter.
More like Bobby Bonilla.
Well, if you didn't have exactly. If you didn't have a bat in his hand, you could say that's a good pitching motion. Leg kick.
Dunn had a 10-pitch at bat in the first inning and flied out to left. It's another one to left field, and Pagan, who was over in the gap, again moving over to the line. And this is the way the Mets have played the outfielders here at Citi Field. You've seen a couple of times already today Pagan have to streak over to catch that fly ball.
They've made that adjustment just around a month ago, and that is to play the gaps, gap your outfielders. In the philosophy behind that, and I know it's a big park here, but I think in any park, gap your outfielders unless you have a dead pull hitter. The ball down the lines, they're automatic doubles anyway. So take away the gaps so the ball doesn't get out. This is triple in this ballpark. So that's the philosophy behind that.
Do you need more speed at the corners to be able to do that?
I think in this ballpark you've got to have 3 jackrabbits in the outfield. It's very, very critical to have 3 guys that can run it down.
So that goes back to our discussion in the last inning when we were talking about constructing a team based on power into center field and a base hit for Willingham. So the Nationals have 2 men on, talking about, you know, if you're not going to get power at a third base, then you need it first base and left field. So when you're looking to construct this team next year and you're looking at a left fielder, are you willing to sacrifice power at a traditional power position to have more speed at that position?
Well, that's what you have out there today with Angel Pagan. He's got all the speed, but he's not going to hit a lot of home runs for you. You know, maybe 5 to 10 at the most.
In a perfect world, you'd have a Mays, Clemente, and Aaron out there, you know. But they're hard to come by.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Carlos Beltran, who's that kind of a player in center field, a guy who's got great speed and who's going to hit 30, 40 home runs in a good season. But there aren't too many of those guys around. Elijah Dukes had a base hit off Pelfrey's foot his first time up.
And there's other big ballparks in the National League too, and San Diego, Washington's a big ballpark.
San Francisco in right center is big.
Yep. So, I mean, traditionally you always want your strongest arm in right field because he's got the longer throw to third base. And you have your weakest arm out in left field. See, another thing too, Gary, is that a lot of the parks in the past would let the grass grow long. Chicago, Wrigley Field was one of those. The parks today, they're like putting greens. So a ground ball that gets by the shortstop on some of these parks, like Atlanta for one, it'll roll to the wall if you've got a truck horse out there.
It's almost like AstroTurf.
Yep, like Valdez's hit today.
Right. Well, see, that's the difference. Willingham, not blessed with great speed, couldn't get over to cut that ball off. Valdez with the flip, Castillo the turn, and they get two. 6-4-3 double play. Pelfrey's second ground ball double play of the night. So Pelfrey, who had had just 2 ground ball double plays in his last 13 starts, has a couple already in this game.
The Nats hit 2 as Frank Core will lead it off. And I was talking to Jeff today, guys, and, you know, he's just so goofy sometimes. He was talking about his thumb, and, you know, I asked him why play at this point. You know, you need the surgery. He said, look, doctor said I'm not going to hurt anymore. Why not play? This is what I want to play. And he said, you know, in a weird way, I think it's actually helping me hit. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you know, because of the way the thumb is, I'm not swinging the bat as hard as I did before. So I'm kind of slowing down my swing, and I really think it's helped me come through the zone a little bit better and have better at-bats. He said, yes, I'm still going to have the surgery. It's not that drastic, but I am learning from this, so it's kind of a nice thing for Jeff Francoeur. On a separate note, guys, just hanging out here as Francoeur drives one deep, and it's going to be off the wall. There you go, that nice little swing. Let's see if he can make it in for 2, though, and he slides in safely. Francoeur's got himself a double. Guys, take it away.
Well, I guess that thumb injury is certainly helping, at least on this swing.
Well, he just missed one the first at bat when he flew out to center, and this one he all over it. And Willingham made a nice play getting this ball in, making it a close play. Got rid of it quick.
Willingham's really improved in left field. When he started with the Marlins, because remember, he was originally a catcher. He went out in left field. He had major problems in Florida, but we've seen him already on a few balls. Made the play easily.
Had that nice catch on right, up against the fence in left center. There's Brian Schneider, and he takes ball 1. Kevin?
You know, guys, I got to tell you, you meet some cool people out here on the bridge. So check this out. It's helmet night, right? So I look over at Vernon over here. I'm like, That's not the helmet they're giving away. It's the S100 helmet that David Wright wore. And he walked in today with the helmet on, and they're asking him, where'd you get the helmet? It's like, oh, I brought it from home. They're like, what are you talking about? He brings it from home. Vernon is a collector, and when he saw David wear the helmet, he wanted to support him, so he went out and actually had to go through a distributor to get the helmet, because as you know, the Mets only had the one helmet, so he got it before anyone else had it, and he's wearing it in support today. So there you go. Take that, Keith.
Well, he looks good in that helmet.
Well, he's got the big squash. He fills it up.
It definitely looks better on him than it did on David.
There you go.
Vernon, you got a bucket head. Just kidding.
Three to Schneider.
We should introduce him to Jay Horowitz.
First walk given up by Martin, and the Mets have two men on. So Martin, who has a difficult time in the third inning, buying more trouble here in the fourth. The 8 and 9 hitters coming up.
The big sigh, not only by Martin, but also his manager.
Riggleman is just hoping to get a couple more innings out of his starter, just trying to hope for a double play here. Corners in.
Here's Valdez, who drilled a double to left center and scored a run in the third inning. In Atlanta, Martin Prado has just homered off Jay Happ in the bottom of the third, and the Braves lead the Phillies 1-0. The Braves trying for their 8th straight win tonight.
And 9 out of 10, right, Gary? Wow.
Happ returning to the rotation for the Phillies after sitting out with an oblique injury. And while the Braves might not have much of a chance to catch the Phillies, they're 7.5 back. They are very much in the middle of the wild card chase, just a game behind the Giants and 4.5 back of the Rockies. Rockies are in Arizona tonight.
And although the Giants might have the best top 2 pitchers, the Braves might have the best 5 pitchers.
Well, they've got Tim Hudson throwing tonight, and he hasn't allowed a hit over the first 3 innings against the Phillies. Double play ball. Scooped up by Desmond. Guzman gets it to Dunn. 4-6-3. 2 out. As Frank Core moves to third.
Well, unlucky for Wilson Valdez here. That was a bullet he hit, but right at Desmond, which thus makes it tailor-made.
Martin with a reprieve from the governor there on that double play.
So the Mets have turned 2 double plays tonight. Now the Nats have turned 1. And so Pelfrey will bat with the go-ahead run at third and 2 out. Mike sacrificed his first time up. 4 runs batted in for the season. And he takes a strike.
Very nice crowd tonight.
I'm frankly a little surprised. I did not think this many people would be here. I mean, you know, the Mets have been announcing tickets sold in the 35 to 38,000 range all season. So you knew there were that many tickets out there. But, you know, you've got the Mets, who have been mathematically eliminated, playing the worst team in the league. And yet the stands are substantially full.
It's a nice crowd.
It's a nice night for a ball game, weather-wise.
That says a lot about the Mets fan, doesn't it?
It does.
That they're here for their team despite the record.
Curveball bounced right back to Martin, and he gets Pelfrey to end the inning. That's going to lead off double. Can't bring him around. Game stays tied at 2 after 4. to Citi Field as the series with the Nationals continues tomorrow afternoon at 1:10 p.m. Visit Mets.com or call 718-507-TIXX for your print-at-home tickets now. Mike Pelfrey goes back to the mound for the 5th inning. Pelf has thrown only 50 pitches through the first 4 innings. A 2-2 ball game as Ian Desmond leads off, and he takes a strike. Remember the other day when we were having a conversation about the Mets starting rotation for next year and about how there would or would not be competition for jobs for guys like Oliver Perez and Mike Pelfrey and John Maine as Murphy gets to the railing but can't make a play. I made it a point to ask Jerry Manuel today about Pelfrey. I said, based on what you've seen so far this year, the totality of his work, when he goes to spring training next year, and this is without knowing whether the Mets will make any acquisitions as far as stars are concerned, I said, will he have to compete for a job in spring training? Well, and Jerry's response was, off what we've seen, he will be part of our rotation. The question is where he fits in.
Yeah, whether he's a 2, 3, 4 kind of pitcher. Well, the thing is that he's got a history of pitching. Some good baseball last season. Looked like he really turned a corner. Maybe a step backwards this year. But I think the thing that Jerry said, which I found pretty interesting, he said the only way that would happen is if we went to spring training and there were 5 pitchers, well, 4, because Santana's a given. There were 4 other pitchers that were better than Pelfrey, which would keep him in the minor leagues. Jerry said if that happens, we've got a heck of a starting rotation. I don't think that's going to happen. So, and the result is that Pelfrey has a job.
Desmond pulls the breaking ball down the line, and he's got an extra base hit. Takes a turn at second and holds on there with a leadoff double. So Ian Desmond has his 5th double in his first 22 big league at bats.
Well, we got a hanger right here. The worst breaking ball that Pelfrey's thrown today. And as far as all of his pitches, he's been pretty spot on. But that's pretty good stuff. What, he's got close to 60 pitches, and that's the only hanger he's thrown. Sometimes you get away with it, sometimes you don't.
So the go-ahead run at second with nobody out, and Josh Bard coming up. And I guess it goes back to the point of here's a young pitcher, Pelfrey, who's he's been around for a few years now and has not had a great season, although there have certainly been some positive signs along the way. And when he goes to Port St. Lucie in February, I guess from what Jerry's intimating, he doesn't have to pitch like a guy who's fighting for a job. And I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, add on what Jerry said too. Has he got anybody better? You know, Pelfrey's. I think he's one of the better pitchers on the staff.
Right, but just in terms of the way he approaches his job, and this was the point you were making the other night, is that there should be open competition. Everybody should have to earn their job coming off a season like this. But I guess the question is, Ronnie, you can speak to this: the difference in a pitcher going to spring training knowing he has a job versus going to spring training fighting for a job.
Yeah, well, competition, as Keith always says, it's a really good thing. It makes you better.
Driven to deep right center off the bat of Bard. Back goes Frank Core looking up, and it's out of here. Josh Bard with a 2-run homer, his 5th of the year. The Nationals' second 2-run homer of the night off Pelfrey, and it's 4-2 Washington. So Pelfrey, who had not given up a Citi Field home run in more than 3 months, has given up a pair tonight to Zimmerman and now to Bard.
This ball did not sink, Ronnie. It just kind of stayed up. Let's see how far away it was. Oh, too much. Outer half. And you can see when he doesn't get on top, it just stays flat. And give Bard credit. He went down there and covered it.
Did not know that Bard had that kind of power, but
I was shocked.
5 home runs for Bard. 4 of the 5 as a left-hand batter.
Well, there it is right there, and that is just full extension.
So he had that lift, didn't he, at the end there with the bat?
Kind of silence the crowd here.
2-2 now to Martin, who bounced out to short his first time up,
but not the booth.
Well, we showed earlier the Mets home run numbers this season. The Mets have hit 87 home runs. Just to kind of talk about the park factor and how little it might mean, the Mets have hit 87. They've now given up 148 to teams playing in the same ballpark they are. On the outside corner, strike 3 called. So Martin is down looking. Second strikeout for Pelfrey.
Well, Francoeur having a little chat with Sandy Alomar Jr. He's saying, what did you do to get thrown in jail?
Is that exactly what he said?
Probably not. Might have been asking about the pitch selection.
Yeah, I saw Sandy wiggle his fingers like, was that a changeup?
Willie Harris 0 for 2, twice his fly to center field, and he takes a strike. If you're standing in right field, can you even see what the pitch selection is?
There's cameras out there. I mean, there's TVs out there.
No, but Sandy, how many innings does he's caught? He can tell by sometimes just the motion or the speed of the pitch.
No, I was talking about Francoeur. Can he tell what the pitch is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, outfielders can sometimes tell, absolutely.
Even from the corner?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They got a big screen out there, don't they?
Well, I don't think he's watching it. I don't think he's watching it.
And then one thing during Sunday games during football season, they better not have the football games on.
That was the maddest I've ever been as a major leaguer. We lost to Montreal. I lost to Montreal 1-0. Mitch Webster led off with a triple, scored on a ground out. No more runs the rest of the game. And then when I came in the clubhouse, and this happens sometimes, you wallow in your own misery. All the guys were in the TV room watching Notre Dame football, and they were so excited, and I was sitting there in my misery, moaning and groaning that everyone was watching the football and we just lost 1-0. That, God, I wish they were that happy during the game or inspired during the game.
Belfry gets Harris looking. Back-to-back strikeouts for Mike, and now 2 out of the inning.
Was I there then?
Yeah, you were there. You were right in the front of the TV, by the way.
Were we playing the season out, or
no? We weren't playing season. We honestly had already won the season. So you know what I mean? It was in September. We'd already won.
But of course,
the eyes were into the football, the whole thing.
So it was just about your particular game.
It was all about me. It really, that's all it really was. It was, and I walked in that TV room and they're jumping up and cheering and going crazy, and I grabbed myself a Labatt Blue and I went on the bus because it was the getaway day, and I just wallowed in my own misery.
Should have had the 2020.
Better?
Oh, much more potent.
I take it you were in Montreal at the time.
They had some interesting beers up there.
Guzman taps one.
Nice.
And Pelfrey with a nice pickup. That retires the side. But the Nats regain the lead. Josh Bard's long 2-run homer into the bullpen. Halfway through, a 4-2 Nats.
back here at Citi Field, been hanging out on the bridge most of this game, guys. Great view and great little breeze out here. And figured we've done it a couple times. It'd be nice to have a little Verizon, Dunkin' Donuts, Ask the Booth right in front of the Verizon studio out here, by the way, which is pretty cool. So we're going to have one of our fans ask you guys a question. Ask the Booth. This is Gerard from Manhattan. Gerard, what do you got?
Hey guys, I can't see you, but I'm sure you're looking sharp. I'd just like to ask you guys, I mean, there's a lot of holes to fill with this team right now, but let's go behind the plate. Do you think a guy like Benji Molina would be a good fit for this team?
Catching position, guys, talked a lot about the left field and the power spot. How about catching?
How old is Benji Molina, by the way? Gary, off the top of your head?
Benji's got to be 34, 35.
Yeah,
right?
and I would say niet.
I mean, Benji is a terrific offensive player at this point and has been a linchpin of the Giants' batting order all year. He's probably not the defensive catcher that he used to be, and he can't run at all, and you really worry about that at this point in his career.
Well, you'd never get his little brother Yadier. That's the guy you would want.
That's for sure.
But I will say that, and Gary makes a good point, I think, and key to the age, is that you can talk all about the lineup you want. If the Mets pitching staff does not come together and stop walking people in this big ballpark and come together as a group and pitch lights out, and the way you can pitch lights out is to have a catcher who is defensive oriented, can get you some, of course, maybe hits with some power here and there, but you need someone behind that plate that's going to be a real leader for this pitching staff.
And I'll take the whole catching question one step further, because sometimes when you make decisions about what you're going to do next year, you have to take into account what you're going to do the year after. And in the Mets case, now they've brought up Josh Thole, and they've seen him for a couple of weeks. And off what they see this year and what they've seen over the last couple of years, they have to decide, is Josh Thole part of the catching solution down the road? Maybe not at the beginning of next year, maybe not even the middle of next year, but in 2011, are you envisioning him perhaps as your starting catcher? And if you are, would you bring in a catcher, say a Molina, for more than 1 year and risk retarding his progress if you think that he can be a starting catcher 2 years from now? See, those are the things that you have to think about. As Castillo, shallow left field, Willingham comes on and makes the play for the second out. And then you don't know if Molina is a guy who would take a 1 year deal. He might want more than one.
And we're not forgetting now about Omir Santos. Is that a great year this year? I mean, do you decide, is Omir Santos your solution to catch every day?
Or do you go platoon?
Yes.
I believe that the Mets, as an organization, are leaning toward believing that Santos is not a number one guy.
Yeah,
that he's a good number two guy. So all those things affect your decision making. You know, it's how that position fits within the team, as you say, in terms of whether you need a veteran guy or whether you want to go with a younger guy. It affects what you're doing at the other positions, whether you need an offensive force or not. It affects what you're doing in development, whether you sign a guy for the long term. All those things are part of the equation that, you know, when you're just sitting there at home and thinking, well, get this guy, get that guy, you know, there's a lot more that goes into it. 2-1 to right. David hit one to the fence in left center his last time, as Martin leaves one out away. 2-2.
So I guess, Gerard, Omar Minaya is not in an enviable position. I certainly wouldn't. He's got a lot of things to decide.
Martin strikes out right. Third strikeout for J.D. Martin. And the Mets are down 1-2-3 after 5, 4-2 Washington. Let's answer our Aflac trivia question. We asked who was the only Major League player to get hits in 2 cities for 2 different teams in the same day.
JoJo.
That would be Joel Youngblood, who played for the Mets in Chicago and got a hit, and then was traded mid-game to the Expos, went to Philly and got a hit that night in 1982.
Joe Youngblood. I played against Joel in AAA with the Reds at Indianapolis. He was such a great athlete, had a great arm, could run, and he hit in the minor leagues. And with Joel, and he could play defense. But he never really hit in the big leagues.
Would you like to hear as Zimmerman rips one to left right at Pagan? And that's the first time Zimmerman's been retired tonight. Would you like to hear what Paul Harvey might have called the rest of the story?
Yes.
Joel Youngblood got 2 hits in 2 cities for 2 teams that same day, August 4th, 1982. He got the hits off 2 Hall of Famers. In the afternoon, he got a hit against Fergie Jenkins, and that night he got a hit against Steve Carlton.
Good day.
That's pretty good, huh?
Good day. Paul Harvey, the late Paul Harvey.
Adam Dunn twice has fly to left tonight.
Well, the Phillies retook the lead 2-1 in the 4th.
Ryan Howard with a 2-run homer, his 39th.
Oh boy,
Dunn gets under one.
Did he ever?
And Frank Coors settling under it for the second out. Time to check in with the studio. Chris Carlin standing by with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. All right, Chris, thank you very much for the video support. 2 out, and Josh Willingham steps in. Willingham has struck out and singled to center, 1 for 2.
Well, watch the reaction here of Big Adam Dunn. Right down Broadway, and he got under it. Oh well.
His quest to hit 40 for the 6th time in a row. You hate to miss those pitches, but
that gum looks awful tired.
They have fresh pieces in the dugout that he can go to, you know.
A lot of the ball players you'll see now start to get those beards. You go, why do they grow those beards in September? A lot of these guys love to hunt. They get those hunting beards in September.
Can I ask you a question?
I honestly don't get the whole hunting.
I just no, not. Yeah. Why do you need a beard to hunt?
Well, sometimes you go into cold weather. It makes you feel a little warmer.
I thought maybe it was camouflage.
Yeah. Those duck blinds all day waiting for the.
I don't know anything about this.
Be freezing.
I'm a city kid.
That's right.
I have never duck hunted. Never.
No desire. Killing.
But the blue blockers are great for duck. Mel Stoudemire told me.
Are you still getting residuals for that?
No, of course not.
You should. It was one of the best infomercials of all time.
That's debatable.
You know, a lot of fans may not remember Keith doing the infomercial for the blue blocker sunglasses.
I don't know why they called them blue blockers, because they were orange. The glasses were orange. Mel loved them. Mel asked me for a case of them for his buddies back in Washington because who hunted. He said they were great in foggy weather.
In Yakima.
Those aren't the blue blockers.
Why do you need sunglasses at night?
I bet you
unless you're Corey Hart.
That's right.
Struck him out. Pelfrey with the fastball gets Josh Willingham. That's 4 strikeouts for Pelfrey, who's retired 6 in a row since Bard's home run.
done.
My old apartment on 49th and 2nd, Sterling Plaza, which was opening to Toyota Texpol. That was my view from my bedroom window, that beautiful Chrysler building.
We're going to come back to the Toyota Texpol because that was really quick. What team will represent the National League in the World Series? Phillies, Cardinals, Dodgers, Rockies, or other? Who would be other at this point? Braves, Giants.
Yeah. Yep. Braves.
Marlins.
Why don't they just put all the teams up there?
Because we can't fit more than 5 entries into the text poll. Anyway, text to 57508 or sny.tv to enter. Carlos Beltran 2 for 2, twice has singled up the middle, and he's driven in a run. Now, is Ian Desmond shading any closer to second base than he was the first 2 times?
Well, yeah, no, he's more straight up this at bat against Beltran. And you know what's going to happen? Beltran will pull one in the hole.
He's playing on that grass, too.
And this time he's aboard with a walk. And so Beltran on base for the 3rd straight time, and the Mets get the leadoff man on for the 4th time in 6 innings against J.D. Martin. His 2nd walk. And so Daniel Murphy, the tying run at the plate. Daniel has struck out and flied out 0 for 2. Big series starting tonight in Minnesota with the Tigers and the Twins opening up a weekend set. The Tigers leading by 4 games over the suddenly surging Twins, who've won 4 straight. Rick Porcello, just 20 years old, in the middle of the pennant race. The Jersey native going for Detroit tonight.
He's got 13 wins this year, and they were hoping that they'd have a big enough lead to kind of narrow him down and get him rejuvenated for the postseason, but can't do it now.
Speaking of Jersey kids, there's Jason Bergman up in the bullpen.
He's a Rutgers product, right?
I think he went to Manalapan High School.
Yes, there you got it.
1-0 to Murphy. Lifts one to center field, and Harris barely asked to move. 1 away. So Beltran back to first with 1 out. Minnesota in that game tonight pitching Brian Dunsing, who's done a very nice job for them. Twins have had all sorts of problems keeping a rotation together this year, and somehow have managed to stay in the race.
Well, their best pitcher was Kevin Slowey, and he had to go on the disabled list. He had something wrong with his wrist. They went, though, and got Carl Pavano, who's done a nice job with them. I think Pavano's got 12 wins on the season.
Started out with the Indians and now with the Twins. Frank Court takes a strike. And Minnesota going the rest of the way without their big slugger, Justin Morneau, which makes their task that much harder.
Kid does a good job holding on runners. He's got a variety of moves, J.D. Martin, and he's certainly showing it to Beltran.
Frank Court ripped a double off the wall in left field his last time up.
This is what they talked about in Martin. He kind of a bend, not break kind of pitcher.
Beltran runs. Frank Court lines one into center field. Beltran saw it all the way. There's an obstruction call as Beltran goes to third. Doesn't affect the outcome of the play as the shortstop, or maybe it was the second baseman, Desmond, who got in the way of Beltran coming around the bag. In any event, Mets have first and third and 1 out.
Wonder if this was a hit and run. Oh, it's a slider that just broke down and over the inner half. Nice hitting by Frank Court. And here's the obstruction. Not bad.
Desmond tried to get out of the way, but it was called by Rick Reed. So if Beltran had somehow not made it to third base safely, he would have been given that base because of the obstruction. So Martin takes his exit here in the 6th inning with a 4-2 lead. Mets have the tying runs on. This call to the bullpen brought to you by Lincoln Mercury. Let's say you want to get your gangrene fix with exclusive post-game reactions, the latest from Rex, Ryan, and insider info and opinion from a Jets blog that's always updated with the latest Jets news. There's a place for that. SNY.TV, your online home of all things New York sports. Didn't know we were on a first-name basis with Rex at this point. He has won one game. Ron Vallone on relief for Washington.
Well, if you remember, he was in spring training with the Mets this year. Let go, signed with the Nationals, pitched in Syracuse, contract was picked up, and he's been outstanding for them.
Fernando Tatis will back for Brian Schneider with the lefty in the game. And Tatis takes up and in for ball one. Fernando had a 2-run single in the game last night in Atlanta.
He's kind of turned his season around. Remember earlier in the first half of the year, hitting the 13 double plays on the season. Well, that hasn't happened in a while.
And you know the other thing about that is that early in the year we were talking about how Fernando was the odd man out and wasn't getting any playing time. Well, with all the injuries, Fernando now has 312 at bats this year, which is more than you probably would have thought coming into the season.
Well, comeback player of the year last year. He's been comeback player of the year within the same season this year for the Mets.
That's good to have the comeback player of the year again this season.
We're going to have a lot of candidates.
Well, Luis Castillo is certainly a candidate this year, and next year the Mets will have 4 or 5 candidates. Fouled away, 2-1. Sean Green up in the bullpen for New York. With the Mets moving down toward the bottom of the batting order. Pelfrey's only thrown 81 pitches through 6 innings, but with the Mets trying to poise themselves for a go-ahead rally, they'll keep Green busy. And it's high, ball 3. So Vallone falls behind 3-1.
Well, do you run Francoeur here?
I think that you're not going to run Francoeur with Vallone, the left-hander. I think you're taking a chance. Gives you that A move.
Yep.
Good count here for Tatis to try to get an extra base hit. Vallone with his 12th major league team.
A lot of stickers on the luggage. And ball 4 in the dirt, loads up the bases. So Vallone comes in and walks the first man to face him. That pushes the tying run to second.
Just fired that ball down. Nice job by Bard keeping that in front of him. Be a good juggler.
So now the base is loaded with 1 out for Wilson Valdez, who has doubled to left center and scored a run and then grounded into a double play.
Yeah, but the double play he hit, Gare, was a bullet right at Ian Desmond. Just unfortunate that he hit it right at him. So Valdez has been swinging a very hot bat.
Valdez, the number 8 hitter. Gary Sheffield has come out on deck to pinch hit for Pelfrey. Mets have the tying and go-ahead runs on base. And Valdez takes a strike. Now Sheffield, who's had 1 at bat since the 28th of August, getting himself ready. Steve McCaddy on the phone to see who's next. One and 1 to Valdez. J.D. Martin went 5 1/3 innings, allowed 7 hits, 2 walks, struck out 3. He's given up 2 runs and responsible for 2 more. Jason Bergman staying ready.
Ready for Sheffield.
On the outside corner, 1 and 2 to Valdez.
Well, let's see if he got the corner. Well, it's close. If you're Tony Gwynn, you get that call.
I guess nobody's getting that call anymore.
That's right. Junior not being contemporary.
1-2. Line left field. Willingham coming on to make the grab. Tagging and trying to score is Beltran. The throw by Willingham. Short hops Bard, who gets the tag down to end the inning. Great play by Bard to pick up that throw from Willingham, and
and slapped the tag on Beltran. The double play takes the Mets out of a threat in the 6th. Willingham's had some night in the field. And a beautiful play by Bard to absorb that short hop and put the tag on Beltran.
Line drive, that was a big plus. In between hop to Bard, who makes a terrific play, not only catching it and holding on to the ball, but making the tag. And Beltran almost slipped that hand in there.
Coors Light freeze cam, trying to get that hand around, but Bard right there before he's able to reach home base.
Dukes drops one down. Josh Thole just into the game, throws it by Murphy and down the line, and Dukes will go to second base. Well, Thole just came into the game after Schneider left for the pinch hitter and immediately pressed into service. And Dukes winds up on second base.
Oh, he got jammed big time. And he hustles down the line. This has got to be two-base error right there, isn't it, Garrett?
Maybe 1-1.
Maybe one could be.
I think the problem there with Josh is that he had a little more time than he thought. He rushed that play a bit.
They're going to score that a hit and an error.
Oh my goodness.
So Dukes with his second infield hit of the day, and then the error on Thole moves him to second.
Good Lord.
Ian Desmond is 1 for 2, doubled and scored in the 5th. That was Bill Shannon.
I saw Bill today.
First string.
Bill's a nice guy. Very sympathetic with his scoring tonight. Over this whole year.
You know, Bill wrote the book on official scoring.
That's right. So, hey, he's the boss. I know one thing. Red Foley, that would have been an E2 twice.
Well, Red was a bit of a curmudgeon.
Oh, yes, he was. But I liked him.
He was a great guy, but he definitely had that curmudgeon quality to him. Terrific sports writer for the Daily News before his official scoring days, as Desmond almost took out the Mets dugout.
Take another look at the tag here. And this is your Coors Light freeze cam, and there, the correct call by Timmons, Mr. Tim Timmons. Just a terrific play all the way around. Well, you risk getting your shoulders separated going with that hand. I do not like that slide.
Now, where Bard was set up looked like he was coming back with his shin guards. Would you want Beltran to go straight in with the football slide?
No, that play right there, he has to try to the hook slide a la Maury Wills. I think with your feet. I'm just always afraid that a catcher's going to come down on the shin guards, on the shoulder. Happened. Remember Reyes in Boston?
Varitek did it.
Varitek dropped Reyes. I'm just, all it takes is a shin protector. Nice at bat right there by Desmond, getting the runner over. Come down on anywhere on your shoulder. Your body's still moving with the slide, and there you separate your shoulder. There you go, right there. That's the risk you run.
Why do you think that slide has become so popular?
Because no one knows how to hook slide anymore. That's the thing. Is that instead of the hook slide, this is the new slide that most baseball players employ.
I've seen a lot of players slide that way.
Right.
And I think you don't get there any quicker. But I think that you get there later. That's why I don't like the slide.
But why do you think that they're not hook sliding anymore?
Can we show that again, that same angle over the top, and freeze it when, yeah, show it again, please. If you can. While we get this lull. Now, go ahead and freeze. Look where his foot is. Now, his hand hasn't touched home plate yet, but his foot would have got there first, because the foot's ahead of your body. And Mays was a great slider. Mays, they said, we used to kick the glove and sometimes would kick the ball out of the infielder or catcher's hand.
Infield in for Josh Bard, who hit a 2-run homer his last time up, and he takes an ugly cut. But I'll ask the question again: why aren't players being taught to hook slide if that's the best play?
I think they have been taught how to hook slide in the minor leagues, because I saw them one day being taught the hook slide, but that has become the fashionable slide. Where they have those pits in spring training, and
I don't see them employed very often.
No.
0-2 to Bard, with Pelfrey in need of a strikeout. Just seems to me that if you have a play that works better and is less at risk for injury, it doesn't make much sense that players are using something that puts them more in jeopardy and is less effective.
Well, they used to call it the hook slide. They used to call it the fadeaway kind of slide, because it was almost like you were getting your left foot in, if you're a right-handed, mostly left foot in at the plate, and then just fading away from the catcher.
Right, the rest of your body gets out of the way.
Yeah.
Right. But here it's instead of the left hand.
Baseball's version of the limbo.
0-2 to Bard. Hit to center field. That should get the run in. Dukes tags at third, and Beltran has no play as Dukes trots in. Sacrifice fly for Bard. His third run batted into the night makes it 5-2 Washington. So a 5-foot hit, an error, a ground out, and a sacrifice fly produce a run for the Nats.
We talked about it before. The Nats will show you will give you every night a good offensive game.
Now Mike Morris will pinch hit for the Nats. Morris, a former Seattle Mariners shortstop, whom the Nats acquired. We saw him about 4 or 5 years ago, and I think it was 2005. The Mets were in Seattle, and Morris was hitting about 450 in his first 2 or 3 weeks in the big leagues. A big kid. He always looked like he was too big to play shortstop.
It's like watching A-Rod play shortstop in the day.
He got a start at first base yesterday. That ball sits on the line, a fair ball, and Tolle throws him out to end the inning. So 2 balls hit a total of about 7 feet by the Nats in that inning, but they get a run and lead 5-2. tonight in Atlanta. He kills the Braves.
Wow.
And the Tigers and Twins scoreless in the fourth, with Detroit leading Minnesota by 4 games in that AL Central.
Yeah, Ryan Howard is just the new Mr. September. I mean, he has great finishes.
You're right about that, Keith.
Can he be Mr. October?
We'll find out. Stay tuned.
Sean Burnett pitches for the Nationals in the bottom of the 7th.
Burnett, you can see his numbers. He has been a workhorse for first Manny Acton and then Jim Riggleman. 70th appearance here for Sean.
Picked up from the Pirates in a deal before the deadline. The deal that sent Lastings Millage to Pittsburgh.
That's right.
And brought Niger Morgan in that same trade. Morgan out for the season after breaking his hand, but what a great deal that was for the Nats.
And Joel Hanrahan, who had been the closer for the Nationals, was in that trade too. Mike McDougal, of course, is the closer for the Nationals right now. Former Kansas City big leaguer.
1-1 to Sheffield, just his second turn at bat since he hurt his back in late August.
Well, this is his 23rd at bat as a pinch hitter. Sheffield has 1 hit, and it was here against Milwaukee, and it was his 500th home run.
Remember it well.
He's hit 9 more since. You see those pinch hitting numbers. Burnett's ahead of him 1-2. And Sheffield lines one right to Desmond, who had it played perfectly for the first out.
Bullet.
Well, it's 2 at bats. He's hit the ball hard.
Yep.
Lined out in Atlanta, and now the same here. So 1 out and nobody on. Now Angel Pagan comes to bat. Pagan is 1 for 3 tonight. Singled home a run in the 3rd when the Mets scored both of their runs to tie the game. Josh Bard untied it with a 2-run homer in the 5th. And the Nats added an unearned run in the 7th against Pelfrey, who is done after 7 innings. Gave up the 2 2-run homers and that unearned run, and so far that would be enough to beat him.
Looks like Burnett, Ronnie, takes a step towards the first base dugout and comes across his body.
Makes him more deceptive.
Does that provide deception for the right-hand hitters or only for the left-hand hitter?
I think for both.
Yeah.
I think for both. It's unusual. Watch where he strides, folks. It's not straight. There, he's kind of off in this angle.
Almost looks like he's going to throw the ball into the dugout.
So you would think a pitcher like that, Ronnie, from the mechanics of it all, would have a hard time coming into a right-hand hitter because he has to come so far across his body.
Yeah, his key is that he throws across the body, has a little sinker to right-handed hitters, and then tries to combine that with his changeup. I think he has a big hook that he'll throw occasionally.
And Pagan went around on the fastball. Burnett has the strikeout, and that's the 2nd out of the inning. So 2 out and nobody on, and now Luis Castillo comes to bat. J.D. Martin went the first 5 1/3 for Washington, allowed 2 runs and 7 hits. Ron Malone got the fly ball double play to get them through the 6th, and now Burnett working in the 7th.
Is it at $51 million now, the jackpot? Jeez, I better get on it.
When's the drawing?
I don't know.
Tomorrow night? I'll buy you a ticket. Castillo 1 for 3, single to center back in the 3rd. Two 2-0 to Castillo. Mets face J.D. Martin tonight. They'll face John Lannon tomorrow. And Garrett Mock will pitch for the Nationals on Sunday. They will not face Livan Hernandez in this series. Livan has done a very nice job for the Nationals since the Mets released him. And here's Levo, and he was quoted in the Washington Post saying that he very much wanted to pitch against the Mets because he felt as though he needed to prove that the Mets did the wrong thing. In fact, Livan is saying that he believes the Mets released him because he was about to reach certain incentives in terms of innings pitched that would have given him more money on his contract.
Probably so. Hang with them.
Castillo retired on the soft line drive after 7, 5-2.
Run there.
One train. Tonight after the post game and at 1 a.m. it's 30 minutes devoted to all things New York sports. Geico Sports Night tonight. The Jets doing plenty of talking heading into their game with the Pats, and the Giants getting ready for their Sunday night game under the big scoreboard in Dallas. On Geico Sports Night tonight after the post game and at 1 a.m. right here on SNY. I love that going into a big football game, the talk is, can the punter hit the scoreboard?
Yeah,
exactly. That's the big talk. Willie Harris up against Sean Green as we start the 8th inning.
Sean Green pitched a couple days ago, got an out in Atlanta.
Extended his scoreless streak.
Harris is 0 for 3, twice his fly to center, and he's taking a call third strike.
Sean's numbers on the season. You know, little mini goals to get that ERA under 4.
Under 5.
Under 5, sorry.
That would be the
5.
first step.
Yeah, sorry.
That would be
in the 4s. That's what I meant.
Nobody wants it to be up in the 5s.
Yeah.
You want to get it down. He's throwing more underhand, Ronnie, it seems.
Yeah, he really has. He's really lowered his delivery. And I think that's helped him. He's giving him more sink on that fastball, and he's throwing more fastball. Change-up grip. Goes back to the sinker grip. He gets himself a ground ball.
So Green makes the play on Harris, who's now 0 for 4 on the night. 1 out of the 8th. Time to check in with the studio. Chris Carlin is there with the New York State Smokers Quit Line game break. Well, the Reds put a big crimp in the Braves postseason hopes a couple of weekends ago by sweeping the Braves in Atlanta. Reds beat the Marlins last night, trying to make it 2 in a row tonight.
And they've been waiting for Homer Bailey for a couple of years now to come around.
It's always one of those teams that's playing it out that's a thorn in a contender's side.
Well, good for them.
Well, also, one is playing more relaxed than the other one. As it's a team like the Braves or Florida,
absolutely
need to win every single night right now.
Christian Guzman 1 for 3. And infield hit back in the first and scored in front of Zimmerman's home run. Boxed around by Tolley, but it's a strike. 2-1. Well, Sean trying to point things in the right direction. Two and two to Guzman. That 3 innings includes the 1 out he's gotten so far tonight. And a full count to Guzman. Mike Pelfrey threw just 90 pitches over 7 innings, 8 hits, 5 runs, 4 earned, no walks, 4 strikeouts, but the 2 2-run homers by Zimmerman and Bard.
Well, Bard centered his, but Zimmerman's in the first inning was really a shocker.
To Zimmerman as much as anybody.
Yep.
Ball just crept out over the fence in right field. An opposite field homer for Zimmerman. Not too many opposite field home runs in this ballpark. Brian Stokes, Pedro Feliciano up in the Mets bullpen. And Guzman hits one right at Castillo. And so Green's retired the first 2 here in the 8th. Ryan Zimmerman coming up. Let's check in with Kevin.
Ronnie, you talked with Sean Green about changing his delivery a little bit, and Dan Worthen approached him on the last homestand about it and felt that when he was delivering normally, he was kind of pulling away with his left shoulder and causing some control issues. So here he wanted him to kind of make his head go towards his arm. Green says the good thing is that his arm slot feels similar, so he likes the way it feels. He did from the moment he tried it in the bullpen. I asked him, does that hinder against lefties? He said, I don't think so, because actually with this, I think I'm doing a better job of hiding the baseball, guys.
Makes sense.
Well, it's an awfully good slider, too. The key with that, when you change your delivery, if you're an underhand thrower, is does it take away your breaking ball? And obviously not there. That was a sharp one by Sean.
Zimmerman's been hitting bullets all night. As Green misses badly with that slider. Zimmerman hit the opposite field home run in the first. He singled to center field in the 4th, and then he hit a rope right at the left fielder Pregame in the 6th. So Zimmerman, who had been struggling in the month of September, having a good night tonight. And now facing the sidearm tosses of Green. 2-1. And that fastball away, and it's 3-1 with Adam Dunn waiting on deck. We got Feliciano up in the bullpen, so it's a pretty good bet that if Zimmerman gets on, Pedro would come on to face Dunn. As perpetual Pedro makes his way toward his club record of 86 appearances from last year.
Perpetual change.
Right cannot handle the hop, and Zimmerman is aboard. That's the second one like that we've seen in the last couple of days for David. It'll be an error charge to right, allowing Zimmerman to reach.
I think they got a bad break on this. Could have got in front of it, didn't, and there's your pitching change.
So Feliciano will come on to face Dunn with a runner aboard. 5-2 Nats in the 8th. We'll be right back. In for the 80th time this year to face Adam Dunn with a man on. Dunn is 0 for 3, 3 fly balls tonight. And first pitch swinging, breaks his bat and lifts one out to right center where Beltran squeezes it. One pitch by Feliciano, and he gets through Dunn to end the inning. Middle of the 8th, 5-2 Nats. SNY. Manalapan High School product. Jason Bergman on to pitch for the Nats.
Well, with the Mets trying to fight this 3-run deficit, in his last game, Jason Bergman gave up a grand slam to Jason Worth of the Philadelphia Phillies. But prior to that, he had 8 scoreless appearances spread over 6 innings.
6.
David Wright is 0 for 3 tonight. Hit one to the wall in left center that Willingham caught in the 3rd. Struck out his last time, and Bergman throws one over his head. Not the first pitch that David has had to make evasive action from tonight.
It's a high curveball here, though. That just never broke.
Nonetheless, when you've already been hit in the head, it's got to make you a little leery.
Oh, agreed. I'm not saying that it's it doesn't get your attention. Absolutely.
David lifts one down the right field line. Dunn back for a look, but that's well out of play. It'll be Wright, then Beltran and Murphy for the Mets in the bottom of the 8th. In Minnesota, Michael Kadire, yet another guy from David's neck of the woods in southeastern Virginia, has hit a home run. And the Twins lead the Tigers 2-0 in the 5th.
How money has he been since Morneau's gone out? He's been playing first base.
27 home runs now for Kadire, and another pitch up and into David. Another breaking ball.
Not getting on top of his curve at all.
He shows it too.
And he gets him with a 2-2 fastball. So Wright is down swinging for the 2nd time tonight.
This has lots of plate, it seems. It sure does.
So 1 out in the bottom of the 8th. And now Carlos Beltran has been aboard 3 straight times with 2 hits and a walk. He's driven in a run. Carlos now hitting .337 for the season. You know, if you remember back to our very first broadcast during spring training this year, we remarked on how well Beltran was swinging the bat, how fluid he looked, and carried that right into the regular season. And you know, there was every reason to think this could have been an MVP type season for Carlos.
The year he had when he hit the 40+ home runs. I mean, in this ballpark, 40+ is going to be difficult, but he was having a year just hitting line drives all over the ballpark.
Well, you mentioned it, Keith. He awoke to this ballpark the quickest, didn't he? Knew that you had to use all the fields.
And he goes down swinging. Back-to-back strikeouts for Bergman to start the bottom of the 8th.
Got on top of that curve.
I was telling you in between innings, didn't I, Keith? This young man, Jason Bergman, has all the stuff to be a great reliever. Tight slider or slurve. He's got enough gas, 92 or 93, to get it by you.
Strike to Daniel Murphy, who's 0 for 3 tonight. Strikeout and 2 fly balls. Toward the hole on a base hit for Murphy. So Daniel has his first hit of the night, and the Mets 8th.
One a day keeps the doctor away.
Well, he had 3 yesterday.
He always manages to sneak one in there when he's got a collar going. Daniel. That's why he's got his average up above 260.
So now Frank Core, who's 2 for 3. A single and a double, and he drives one into right center, and he's got his 3rd hit of the night. Murphy to 3rd as Harris cuts it off. Well, Jeff Francoeur now has his 5th 3-hit game in his last 7 games.
Well, Kevin talked about it before when he talked to Francoeur that he's cut down his swing. I don't know if you've noticed at home, but he's taken a lot more pitches in this ball game than he usually does. Murph hustling between first and second.
So the Mets will get the tying run to the plate here in the 8th.
We're going to have a flip-flop here.
Josh Thole is coming up for the first time. And as Ronnie mentioned earlier, the Nats have 3 lefties in that bullpen. They've already used 2 of them tonight. But they've got the 3rd one, Victor Garate, and I don't know if they're bringing him in now. Garate, a kid they picked up from the Dodgers in the Ronnie Belliard trade. But the Nats will make a double switch here, leading 5-2 in the 8th. We'll be right back to Citi Field. New York Mets baseball on SNY is brought to you by IOTV. Get the best in HD free with IOTV. By Geico. By Honda. And by the New York State Smokers Quit Line. Well, changes for the Nationals. Alberto Gonzalez comes in to play second base. Ian Desmond moves over to shortstop. Gonzalez will bat ninth, and the Nats will go to their closer, Mike McDougal, for a 4-out save opportunity. Josh Thole, the batter, tying run at the plate, takes a strike.
Wow, 96 miles an hour. McDougal has been outstanding in August and September, converting all 9 save opportunities. 8 in August. That's the most since Chad Cordero had 9 in 2007.
Released by the White Sox on the 1st of May, signed by the Nationals, and through attrition became the closer, and he's done a pretty nice job. McDougal was a closer back in his Kansas City days back in 03 and 04 before losing his job the following year, drifting to the White Sox, and now for the first time in the National League. Thole up for the first time, took over behind the plate after Schneider left for a pinch hitter. Josh hitting at 367. Runner goes from first, and Frank Core will be allowed to take second base.
Where was that pitch?
Ball was right down the middle. Timmons missed it.
That's one of those cases where the catcher comes up and blocks the umpire, and they don't get the call. This pitch is a strike. Inside, locked up, Thole. Wow. He didn't get up. He just blew the call. Gee. Woo.
6th stolen base for Frank Core, so now 2 are in scoring position. People still thinking that pitch should have been a strike. Can't really blame him.
Pitcher's pitch.
So it's 2-1 to Thole. And Josh takes on the inside edge, 2-2. A call like that, do you think the umpire knows that he missed it and is more inclined to call a strike on the next pitch?
Makeup? Not when the game's in the balance. I think you miss one, and if an umpire say, I missed it. Yeah. Harry Windlestat was great that way.
2-2. Outside and a full count to Thole. Wilson Valdez is on deck.
McDougal pitching Thole away here with that sinker. Josh Willingham in left field, way too deep.
Still getting their book together on Thole.
Yeah.
3-2 for McDougal, and he fouls it away. And McDougal still throwing very hard at age 32.
How do you release this guy? Wow.
And Thole foul tips it into the middle Bard. So McDougal comes on and strands 2 in scoring position to keep the Nats up 5-2 as we go to the 9th at Citi Field. 1-2 punch on the mound with Carpenter and Wainwright. The 1-2 punch on the lineup with Pujols and Holiday.
Don't forget their closer.
Josh Willingham lifts one deep to left field. Back goes Pagan near the wall, and it's out of here. Josh Willingham greets Brian Stokes. First pitch, 23rd home run of the season, and it's 6-2 Washington. The Nationals' third home run of the night. So a rude greeting for Brian Stokes as Willingham takes him deep. And the Nats extend their lead to 4.
Well, not wasting any time. Fastball down Broadway.
Boy, that ball stayed true, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
Did not move an inch.
It moved after he hit it.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Here's Elijah Dukes, who has 2 infield hits tonight. He takes ball 1.
Four or 5 rows deep for Mr. Willingham, who's had a fine game defensively and offensively.
And Dukes drives one to left center field. Pagan gets over and catches it on the warning track for the first out. So Stokes giving up a couple of shots to start the inning. Well, we mentioned Willingham early in the season was sitting on the bench for Washington. I don't think that's going to happen again.
No. You said, Gary, Jim Riggleman made some changes. Probably his best year as a manager was in Chicago in '98 when they won the wild card.
He had a young Kerry Wood that year in 1998. Remember, Kerry missed the last 6 weeks of the season that year because of elbow problems, and they brought him back in their playoff series against the Braves, down 2-0, pitching on a frigid night at Wrigley Field, and then he missed the whole next season. Valdez throws out Desmond for the second out. Of course, that wasn't Riggleman's decision necessarily. That was an organizational decision, and one that Cubs people will tell you to this day had nothing to do with Wood breaking down and missing the next year.
Yeah, well,
right.
Whatever. But Mets had a young pitcher, Mr. Tim Leary, who pitched on a cold day in Chicago also, and it cost him some serious time.
Missed the rest of his Mets career.
That's right. Yeah.
Really didn't resurrect himself till he got to L.A.
Tim Leary, one of my favorite teammates.
Yeah, he's great. The Doc. He's my roommate in AAA.
He was everything at UCLA, and he had, folks, the greatest stuff. Great fastball, great curveball, and just never put it together.
LA that one year he put it together. He won 17 or 18 games, I believe.
I really thought he had a chance to be a great pitcher.
He was one of those guys in AAA, I'll never forget it. When he would throw on the side, everyone would watch. That's how good his stuff was. But, you know, like Mr. Seaver has always told us, there's 4 or 5 outs you have to get in the game. You're a starting pitcher if you want to be successful. Early in his career, he wasn't always able to do that.
Bard fouls it back. Bard's had a big night. 2-run homer, sacrifice fly. And that great tag that he made at home plate on Carlos Beltran. By the way, Pedro Feliciano threw 1 pitch tonight for his 80th appearance of the year. There have now been 6 times in Mets history that a pitcher's thrown in 80 or more games, and Feliciano has 2 of those 6. The other Met pitchers who've been in 80 games in a season: Mike Stanton, Joe Smith, Aaron Heilman, and Turk Wendell. One-two, and it's taken high by Bard. 2-2. But Feliciano set the record last year with 86. That's 14 more games after tonight if he gets in 7 of them, which is, you know, less than his rate. He'll have a new record, and I think he wants that new record.
Why not?
He also expressed the thought that he would love a new multiple-year contract. Wouldn't we all? 3-2 now to Bard.
We're more day to day, Gary.
Down the left field line, that'll slice out of play. Looking ahead to the last of the ninth, the Mets will have Valdez, the pitcher spot, and Pagan due up against Mike McDougall on helmet night at Citi Field.
Those are good looking helmets, by the way.
Got in on him, and Bart pops one up. Valdez will handle it, and that ends the inning. A tack-on run on the Josh Willingham home run, and the Nats lead 6-2 headed to the bottom of the ninth. Right after Keith and Ron and I are done here, there is no need at all to move your dial one bit. Don't touch the remote, because right after the game, Chris Carlin and Bobby Ojeda will be along with tonight's highlights, interviews, Jerry Manuel's post-game reactions, and much, much more on Lincoln Mercury Post-Game Live right here on this same network after tonight's game and after every Met game right here on SNY. Justin Maxwell into play center field. Willie Harris moves to left. Wilson Valdez leaves for the pinch hitter as Corey Sullivan bats for him against Mike McDougall, leading off the last of the ninth.
If the Mets continue this string, Jerry's going to have one of those post-game comments like Peter Finch did in Network.
Leaning out your window?
Yeah.
Sullivan 0 for his last 14. And McDougall, who was brought on in the 8th inning to strike out Josh Tolley, looking for the 4-out save. Three and one now to Sullivan, with Jeremy Reed out on deck to pinch hit. And then Angel Pagan here in the last of the ninth.
Must throw strikes.
I think that's been McDougall's problem. He has that great stuff, but it's hard to repeat that motion. Kind of a herky-jerky motion.
Here's a strike, 3-2. In Atlanta, Jason Worth has just singled in 2 runs in the 8th, and the Phillies now lead the Braves 5-1. Meanwhile, Colorado now underway in Arizona, just getting started. Next SNY telecast will be Monday night against those very same Atlanta Braves. 6:30 the coverage Monday night.
We'll see if the Braves come on a roll here or come limping in.
Well, they need to get some late inning magic going against the Phillies tonight.
The incredible Mr. Limpet.
And well, the way the Phillies' late inning bullpen has gone, perhaps that's a possibility for them. What's that from?
Don Knotts was a cartoon. Remember, Don Knotts was the fish, Mr. Olympic.
Ball 4, and Sullivan's on with a walk. So the Mets get the leadoff man on the bottom of the ninth. I don't have any recollection.
It was a cartoon movie.
Well, yeah, it was a movie that he would transform into a fish and would warn the U.S. Navy of U-2 boats.
Right, exactly.
Because he had a big yell as a fish.
Right.
Don Knotts?
Don Knotts.
Did he still get to carry his one bullet in his pocket?
No, but even as a fish, he had glasses.
And even as a fish, he looked like Don Knotts.
Perfect. Here's Jeremy Reed. 15 pinch hits this year. Sullivan will take off, and that'll be defensive indifference, moving Corey down to second.
Sullivan's making it tough on himself here.
So McDougal having trouble throwing strikes. There's one.
It's that old 4-out save, right? The relievers come in, they get that out in the 8th, they go sit down, and sometimes they can't regroup.
Well, Frankie Rodriguez tried for his first 4-out save as a Met the other night. Was unsuccessful, not all his own doing. Some, but not all. Reed lifts one to left, and Harris is right there. And that's the first out in the bottom of the ninth. So Sullivan at second with 1 out, and now Angel Pagan coming up. The wind is really whipping.
Yes, sir.
From left across toward right.
It actually looks like it's blowing more in directly from left field towards the first base dugout. Interesting. Forget it. Not important.
Maybe it is.
How will we know until you say it? Here's Pagan, who's 1 for 4, drove home a run with the 3rd inning single.
Well, look at the pants of McDougal when he gets on the mound and gets in his stretch. They're kind of rippling in the wind. Looks like golfers at the British Open on a windy day. Or was I hallucinating?
I don't know. It looks like his pants are a little too tight to ripple.
I was hallucinating.
Now it's 2-0 to Pagan. Well, I'm sure you remember being a San Franciscan. Stu Miller being blown off the mound at Candlestick during the All-Star game.
Yes, I do. And I also remember Eddie Lynch lost his hat.
And it blew up right up against the fence and was held there.
In dead central.
And ball 3 to Pagan. Well, McDougal helping the Mets out as they try and launch an unlikely 9th inning rally. Luis Castillo on deck. And Jim Riggleman getting a little annoyed. 3-0 now to Pagan. He'll take 1 pitch and maybe 2. Trying to get on. Mets need base runners. If they could get Pagan and Castillo on, they could get right to the plate as the tying run. And Pagan takes ball 4. And so the Mets have something working here thanks to Mike McDougal, who's walked 2 here in the last of the ninth, and that'll send Steve McCatty out to the mound.
Really, this is how these comebacks start, when a reliever has the inability to throw strikes, because it's pretty hard to put 4, 5, 6, 7 hits together. But now 2 base runners for the Mets.
So McCatty will chat with McDougal. Meanwhile, in Cincinnati, the Marlins went to the 9th inning trailing the Reds 2-1. Jorge Cantu just doubled in a run, and the Marlins have 2nd and 3rd and 1 out against the Cincinnati closer Francisco Cordero. So Florida trying to keep its very slim postseason hopes alive. Same thing the Braves are doing tonight.
You saw them when the Mets face tomorrow. There's a lot of fight in that team.
Now you got plastic and paper blowing all over the outfield. Most of the paper congregating near the left field fence. Which is sometimes how it works. You get that upper level wind blowing one way and the papers on the ground go the other way. So now Castillo with 2 aboard. Mets need 1 more base runner to get the tying run to the plate. Louis tonight 1 for 4, singled back in the 3rd inning. And the Marlins have just tied it in the top of the 9th on a dead Ugla ground out. So that's 2-2 now in Cincinnati. And Castillo swings and misses at the fastball, and now McDougal has him 0-2. In Arizona, the Rockies have jumped out to a 2-0 lead in the 1st inning. Your Torrealba driving home a pair. Against Kevin Mulvey. 0-2. Oh boy, low and away. Now, if the Rockies can take care of business, nothing else that anybody does is going to matter. And there's really no other race in the National League at this point. I guess the Rockies might have a chance to catch the Dodgers, but if they did, it would be a situation where both teams would be going to the postseason anyway.
Florida took the lead, Garrett, 3-2.
Castillo toward the hole, base hit. Sullivan will be held at 3rd, and the Mets will get the tying run to the plate here in the last of the 9th. So Castillo able to poke one by Zimmerman to load him up.
Well, 2 strikes on Castillo, and no comprende why Zimmerman's playing in. Folks, that's if people don't understand Spanish. That means I don't understand. Well, he wasn't playing that much in, but he could have played back further.
So bases loaded, 1 out, and David Wright steps to the plate as the tying run. David is 0 for 4 tonight, struck out his last 2 at bats. But back in the 3rd inning, he hit one to the fence in left center that Willingham caught. Mets with a chance. And Wright lines one into right field for a base hit. That'll get Sullivan home. Pagan will stop at 3rd. An RBI single for David Wright makes it 6-3 Washington. And now the tying runs are on base with 1 out, with Beltran coming up. McDougal put himself in jeopardy with walks.
Oh, nicely done by David. Doesn't waste any time. Got a pitcher out there struggling. Got a fat one. And this has been the problem for the Nationals. They're pitching. And the Mets are a blast away from winning this ball game.
Beltran 2 for 3 and a walk tonight. He singled home a run back in the 3rd. And Carlos takes inside for McDougal, 1-0. So Beltran batting here against his former Kansas City teammate Mike McDougal. The infield back a double play, Doug. And Beltran grounds a double play ball. Gonzalez to Desmond, back to first, not in time. Beltran safe as he goes down. A run comes in. Luis Alicea making sure that Beltran is okay. After he tumbled past the base, the game stays alive. It's now 6-4, and the tying runs remain aboard for Daniel Murphy.
Well, both infielders here just take their time. Well, not really. I'm sorry. It wasn't a great feed. I'm mistaken.
It wasn't a great feed, and also Desmond didn't get the handle on the ball, didn't get enough on the throw.
A good call at first base by Mark Wegner. He was safe. But Carlos appears to be okay after taking that header. It looked like he tripped over the foot of Adam Dunn. So 2 runs are in. Mets are down to their final out, though, with Murphy up. And Daniel takes ball 1.
Well, the 2 walks are just really putting McDougal. He's not going to be able to pitch tomorrow. This is just a...
Tyler Clippard gets up in the Nationals bullpen. He's been pitching very well, the former Yankee. Murphy 1 for 4 on the night. Tying runs aboard, 2 out. And he fouls it off, 1-1. Murphy, who hit a home run last night, looked like he was trying to win it with 1 swing.
He's hot.
But it just shouldn't happen. You shouldn't have your closer out there walking 2 guys with a 4-run lead, 5-run lead.
Murphy lines one hard. Desmond with a beautiful stop. He then bobbles, throws high off Dunn's his glove. Castillo is scored. Beltran goes to third. Murphy takes second. It's 6-5, and the Mets have the tying and winning runs in scoring position. A brilliant stop by Desmond, but he couldn't complete the play.
Well, Dunn's got to make this play right here. It was a brilliant play by Desmond. A bullet. Boy, oh boy. Did he have a play at second? Yeah, he bobbled. So he goes properly, but Dunn's got to make this play. Oh, that's a lot of his reach.
Yeah, Dunn going to charge an error on Desmond on the throw. So now a base hit could win it for the Mets. 3 runs home in the last of the ninth. 6-5 Washington. Francoeur is 3 for 4 on the night. Beltran at third and Murphy at second. And Francoeur takes high for ball 1. Mets looking for the big finish in the first game of this homestand. And Francoeur hits one, knocked down by McDougal, lost his glove, throws it out, and the ball game is over.
Jeez.
Wow. Gotta be kidding. Well, Francoeur ended the game by lining into an unassisted triple play earlier this season at Citi Field. This time, thought he had one up the middle to win it, but he knocks the glove off McDougal, who throws him out, and the Nationals hang on for the 6-5 win.
Well, just unbelievable finish for Jim Riggleman and his Nationals as McDougal tried to give the Mets a victory there, but ended up making the great play on Francoeur, who hit bullets all night long.
Well, you can just see the frustration on the Mets. This is a ball back. One hopper knocks his glove off. Oh, you just got to be. You know, you snake bit.
What else are we going to see this season?
Well, the last time he hit a bullet up the middle in the ninth inning, that was the one that Eric Bruntlett caught for the unassisted triple play. This bullet knocks the glove off the pitcher, and Francoeur again ends the game in unlikely fashion.
Absolutely would have been a hit, would have driven in two and given the Mets a victory. Instead, hang with them. And another loss for the Mets. They're 6th in a row.
Mike McDougal gives up 3 runs in the ninth inning, but winds up getting credit for the save, having come on in the 8th to get the strikeout of Tolley. And another night ends in frustration for the Mets. Their first 6-game losing streak since 2005, and you can understand Jeff Francoeur's frustration at finding the game ending that way. After he had himself a big night at the plate, it ends in that fashion. Wow. So the Nationals win at 6-5, handing the Mets their 6th consecutive loss. Mets have gone the last 4 seasons without a 6-game losing streak. The only team in the majors that could say that, they can say it no longer. Home runs by